New business, education.
All right. Can we please stand for the pledge?
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Yeah, Arlene, can you do roll call, please?
Sure. John Aldred.
Here.
Francis Bach.
Here.
Del Cullum.
Here.
Rick Drew.
Here.
Jim Grimes. Bill Taylor.
Oh, here.
Susan McGraw-Keeber.
Here.
And Susan Borple.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, we'll start with the public portion of the meeting. Lauren Bolger.
Hi, I'm Lauren Bolger, and I am the chair of the Springs Citizens Advisory Committee. And I was hopeful that behind me you would be seeing a map of Maidstone Park. But you might. It's 100% complete. So as I'm speaking, if you do see a map of Maidstone Park, let me know so I can refer to it. I am here because years ago, or for many years, the beach, the Trustees beach, aka Baby Beach, down at Maidstone Park, has been a controversial piece of property. We all acknowledge that everybody has the right to drive on that beach. But the reality is that a lot of people with small children come to that beach because it's very sandy, very soft, and it's very, hi Jimmy.
Sorry.
And and it's very shallow. So the babies and the big trucks can be somewhat at odds with each other. Recently, I asked the trustees, two of the trustees, Francis and Jimmy, to come and speak with me about this problem. Oh, well, that's not Baby Beach, but.
You're not trying to run away from this meeting, are you, Zach?
I'm
May not be worth what I'm doing.
No, but it doesn't matter. You're all familiar with the properties. I wish I had.
And we have- you do
And you
have
have the
maps.
handouts.
We have
Okay,
handouts.
terrific. So, I think we all agree that there is a safety issue at that property because big trucks and small children really shouldn't mingle too closely. So, but we also appreciate the fact that everybody should have access to the beach. I wish I had something to refer to.
Yeah.
I did- here we go. Okay, now, as you see now, there's a large access point here. It's, I don't know how many feet across, but it is at least 3 or 4 car widths across where people are now coming onto the beach. And where they come onto the beach, they go directly onto this little crescent where the small children are. The idea might be to close that gap a little bit, rebuild the dune, and have the access just on the, I don't know whether it's north, on the jetty side of that, so that a truck would be able to come in here, or a car, and park here. But they would, and if they wanted to, they could make a big U-turn and come onto the beach. But their predisposition would probably be to go toward the jetty. It would be a one-way access. Then they could drive or park, whatever they wanted to. And when they wanted to leave the area, there is also an access point right here, closer to the jetty. Are you all following me? Am I making sense here?
Yeah. I think we're all, Lauren, I think we're all fairly familiar.
Oh, okay.
with this
I didn't know
area.
whether anybody knew what I was talking
Yeah,
about.
and I think, as far as the solution that you, myself, and Francis worked out on site there, I think is reasonable for everybody. It maintains the public's access via a vehicle to the beach, but it also protects that area where people are likely to have towels or blankets or whatever set up. And it may impact a few people that feel compelled to back their SUV right down to the water's edge. But you know what? I think it's a fair compromise. We'll direct the traffic more or less in a one-way fashion around there. Everybody still has access. The mothers with small children have a safer situation, and I think, to me, that would basically benefit everybody. And what we had talked about was essentially extending what is a dune there now, just extending it about another 60 feet, closing or tightening up this opening a little bit so that the vehicular access is more clearly defined. And what we were planning on doing is protecting that dune with a temporary split rail fence and perhaps adding a small section of split rail fence on the other side of the access just to limit the driving on the beach vegetation. I think it's a simple solution. I don't think anybody should really have an issue with it.
And it would be one way. It would be one way coming in, right? And then.
Well, I don't think it's going to be enforceable as a one-way thing, but it'd be somewhat intuitive that if you enter in that area, that you'll more than likely exit a little farther to the north. And if you happen to be the person that enters on the north side, well, then you'll come out on the south side. I don't think anybody ever drives in there with any sort of speed that this should be an issue. It's pretty clear visibility. Everybody sees each other. I didn't
Well,
see
that's
it
true.
as a
But
problem.
you all don't think that it would just be easier to have the entryway coming in one way and the exit?
It would be nice to do that, but I don't see, personally,
Yeah.
I don't see the need for signage to direct people. We got enough friggin' signs around.
How about a safety patrol officer stationed there?
No, how about we try and keep this simple?
Oh, I thought that was so I have discussed that with the Spring CAC, and we were unanimous in our support of this initiative. This has been a problem for the Springs Maidstone going people for years, and I understand the trustees' resistance to limiting access to that beach, but this is not a limitation of access. This is a redirection of access. So I hope that you look at it that way and find favorably. And it can be a trial program, too. I think it would help, and you would get a lot of accolades from the community for giving it a try. And I thank you for listening.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Jim, do I understand this correctly, that there'll still be two openings? It's just that
Yes.
the larger opening will be constricted a little bit?
Actually, John, right now, this whole area is open
Right.
from where this dune ends.
Right.
And really, you can actually see where the traffic has kind of eroded this dune back a little bit.
Right.
What we were talking about is extending the existing split rail fence down, having a short section on this side, actually building this back up as a dune so that anybody that does pull up to this spot, if, let's say, they mistakenly take off, the people that are on the beach actually would be protected.
I got it.
Okay, so there'd be the access here, there'd still be the access here.
I got it. Okay.
The whole idea is there's that cove right there, and that's where the kids tend to congregate.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
So to try to direct the traffic sort of away from that cove a little bit so that the kids can just
Right.
play and not have
More
to,
safely play.
yeah.
Yep. Sounds like a good start.
Yeah, good plan to me.
So,
do we want to have a vote on this, if this is an acceptable solution to the problem, and then maybe we can do kind of like we did with the kayak racks, or whether we involve the Parks Department?
You want to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we change the access down
So
there.
then the trucks would only be allowed to go to a certain, they wouldn't be allowed to?
No, they'd be allowed there, but you know what happens right now, Susan? Everybody that pulls in here just literally pulls right through this whole area. And there's a lot of people that have complained in the past that they feel it's an unsafe situation. When we went down there and looked at it, it was evident that this had all the potential for a disaster. By directing vehicles in here, the hope is that they'll kind of avoid these areas, at the very least, give them the opportunity to recognize that there's people on the beach, as opposed to right now where they just, without any restrictions, just pull into this area.
And they would still have access to this
Yeah,
here.
there's no.
It's just that it wouldn't be just drive right
most of the
through.
That's
anywhere.
the concern, right, is all the children here in the vehicles, but you're thinking that they'll just kind of congregate?
Well, I think what's going to happen is, I think this access is really only going to be probably 13 feet wide, 15 feet wide. That's not wide enough for two vehicles to pass each other. And quite frankly, I don't see the need to it, because you've got an easy exit over here, and if you happen to pull in here, you got an easy exit out this way. So there isn't even really the need to
So it's just
like get turned around on the beach.
eliminating the access for them to get on.
Well, I
right
mean, it's
here.
eliminating about 60 foot of access.
Would you mind using the big map for us as
Yeah.
well?
But, Jim, one thing I'd like to point out is, if you look at a lot of the beach accesses that exist, they're usually one trail.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
at
And I mean, this here.
anywhere
this
you
was
get
a
on or
pro-
off.
This whole thing was a product of dredging. You see this wide area here?
Yes.
Okay, this is the area we're talking about. Okay, this area is probably, I guess, what you'd call the baby beach. What we're talking about is moving the access to where the existing vegetation is, 15 foot back. There's a split rail fence in here now, extending it so that people won't be just driving straight in. And really what's happened in the past there, I've seen the pictures of the cars literally stacked up in that area. There's a freaking parking lot over here, okay?
So now they have
It's
to
not
just
like
walk
you
down.
got no place to park.
There's ample parking there,
There's all kinds of parking.
and then people just walk down rather than park
Yeah,
right
but
at the
I mean,
beach.
for the person that wants to go fishing or whatever, it's easy access. What it isn't, it's not like a friggin' parking lot going down to the water's edge anymore. I think that's what everybody was looking for.
It's such an easy place to get on, so if you're not a real experienced four-wheel drive operator, I think people look at it as a place where you can go four-wheeling.
Yeah.
And it's just maybe become a little too casual.
Isn't that where we've had some cars get stuck as well?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, the one BMW in the
Yeah.
water there.
Oh, that was the same stuff.
So I think we can protect the access
I'll second, Jim.
and make it safer.
John, second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Good job.
We're going to
Okay.
have the...
Zachary, do you have something else to talk about, or was that?
No, I'm the sidekick tonight.
Okay.
I'm just, a bad IT sidekick.
Thank you all for your
Okay.
consideration.
Hey, thank you, Lauren.
Kevin McAllister?
Good evening, trustees. Kevin McAllister of Defend H2O. In candor, I want to basically express some frustration and get something off my chest this evening with the board. And this pertains to vector control activities. And Francis, if you give me a little latitude, I'd like to at least provide some history to vector control, to their practices. I know this was discussed at the last meeting. Essentially, all of the tidal wetlands in Long Island were ditched back in the 30s. It was a Depression-era jobs program that morphed into mosquito control, Suffolk County Mosquito Control Division. Ultimately, the intent was to drain wetlands. There's no question about that. The subsequent permits over time, and I've looked at many of them, ultimately Suffolk County had recognized and justified ultimately the ditching of wetlands for the conveyance of stormwater runoff. So ultimately to move this water off the marsh. This is contradictory to all the, basically all of our efforts to protect water quality and essentially address stormwater runoff. In 2001, Napeag, you may not recall this, but vector control set up for several months out on that marsh in the wintertime. They brought in the Bombardier, which is a track machine, ultimately has a cutter head on the front, ultimately to open up these ditches. At the time, the Wildlife Conservation Society had transmitters on 7 spotted turtles, species of special concern. They lost 3 of those basically transmissions, I believe, as a result of their activities. Wintertime, you're talking diamondback terrapins, spotted turtles, mud turtles, mudding down. So they're extremely vulnerable. Point I'm trying to make with the ditching, ultimately, it was purposeful for the drainage purposes. 2004, they were ready to embark on a very ambitious plan to redredge 660 miles. I filed a lawsuit against DEC and Suffolk County to stop that for failure to have any adequate environmental review. Ultimately, DEC withheld that permit. It just kind of went away quietly. Suffolk County Executive at the time, Steve Levy, announced that there would be no more ditching. Now we move over into the spraying activities. Of course, over the years with the adulticides, basically the ultra light volume of off the back of the trucks, as well as, of course, the helicopter spraying. But in 2003 in Flanders, it was a major fish kill. All biota was knocked out. I ultimately responded to that fish kill. I collected samples, tried to get DEC to run these samples. They ignored ultimately this, the sampling and the testing. I had it tested myself, Long Island Analytical Laboratories. They confirmed that it was one of the pyrethroid scourge that they use, but to have it be with certainty, they needed basically a sample of that material. Suffolk County refused to provide that. And then we move into ultimately their very ambitious plan with respect to their long-term wetlands management and environmental impact study. And that was triggered because of a lawsuit for failure to have proper environmental review. What was very contentious was the use of methoprene. And as I've described in the past, CEQ, Council on Environmental Quality, is the secret arm for Suffolk County. So in the course of it was a parallel track. You had the consultant developing an impact study simultaneously with Council on Environmental Quality reviewing components of that work product. The final findings, they rejected the use of methoprene. They thought the risk was too high based on a very extensive literature review. And the other component was to dismiss the use of OMWA, open water marsh management, for purposes, or at least on the more invasive, extensive applications because of uncertainty in the impacts. And I'm describing to you ultimately the effect on the drainage. Michael Horse, Dr. Michael Horse, who's up in the University of Maine now, he had provided important testimony and review, rather, of the EIS process. He talked about the impacts in these shallow pans, the use of methoprene, knocking out other biota beyond the mosquito larvae. Bringing us forward, and here comes the level, I guess, of frustration, if you will. You all know I've been on this for a very long time. I'm very deep into the science, into the policy, into the regulations, and as well as the lies, quite frankly. But you know, over the course of the time, the trustees have always stood tall on this issue. And I understand, you know, your limitations of, let's say, getting up into HOPOG and you know, constantly addressing the Health Committee, DPW Committee, the full legislature. But in 2016, and this is where I'm bringing, Francis has certainly knowledge of this. At that time, when they were considering the 2017 work plan, the trustees was poised to continue to oppose the application of methoprene. And I was at the Health Committee meeting. Legislator Fleming, recognizing both Southampton and East Hampton had issues as elected officials, as the stewards of our waterways, ultimately she wanted to hear. And I think subsequent there was a meeting with DPW staff, Natural Resources, the trustees, and perhaps Fleming. And I think the understanding was that we would embark on some form of study or review, looking at aquaponic. I don't know what happened to last year's effort, but now as we move forward, apparently we've enlisted, I say collectively, enlisted the Nature Conservancy to oversee the larval monitoring. Now that's all well and good, but I guess, I'd like to know where we're going with this, because from my perspective, the science is very settled. Methoprene has collateral impacts. There's no question about this. Connecticut has banned it. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service out in Coos Bay National Wildlife Refuge out in Oregon may not use it. The preferred alternative is BTI. Rhode Island took action up in Narragansett. New York City in 2001, when they responded to West Nile concerns when it first appeared in '99, ultimately said we've got to keep it out of Jamaica Bay. So to my point on the science is absolutely settled. So we're embarking on this review to see where the larvae are. There's no question there's cans out there, shallow water. That's where the breeding happens. But the ultimate outcome, and I hear everyone talk, we're striving to ultimately discontinue methoprene use. We don't need to study this any further. We don't necessarily need to be monitoring to determine where this mosquito larvae may be breeding in these areas. Ultimately, I hope you don't lose your voice on this, and that ultimately you continue to stand firm in opposition to methoprene. And my world extends further beyond East Hampton's boundaries, of course, and I know that is your charge, and there's no expectation to go beyond that. But there's over 20,000 acres every year that they treat with methoprene. And I'm very concerned that ultimately and now we're on to at least year 2 on this, presumably there's a year 3 and maybe beyond, that the opposition to the use of methoprene is essentially, I'll say, silenced for the time being. And that shouldn't be. This should be very clear cut to all of us by now. I have strong feelings that this was strategic. It was done by Legislator Fleming to ultimately just, let's quiet the opposition that was building. I've been to multiple meetings. I've seen the interactions. I will tell you, I'm not pleased to hear the superintendent of vector control get up there 3 or 4 times with different boards and be queried about the state of Connecticut and say there's no such ban. That's absolutely false. There is a ban in Connecticut. And we don't need to look any further. They had due diligence on their review. I'll say, from a cursory view, in at least following the press and occasional calls to the legislators that were involved with this, ultimately there's no harm, no foul. We're a couple years in, I think, 13 or 14. I'm a little drawing blanks now on the actual ban, but it's several years in Connecticut. The sky hasn't fallen. Methoprene is not used. We're not talking about West Nile virus. And I pointed this out. It does not exist in the larval stage. Again, this is clear as clear can be. Methoprene needs to be discontinued. In the interest of, I guess, monitoring aquaponic, I'll ask rhetorically, what's the end game here? I mean, ultimately, are we to define where these pans are, where these hot spots are?
No, I think the goal on that thing was to, 1, identify the breeding spots, monitor the breeding spots, And the goal on that was actually to see if you could hit these hot spots that you know existed with BT and hopefully avoid the spraying of those areas. And if this program worked out on Aquaponic, that this would be expanded to other areas. That was my understanding, is that's how this would go, okay? Kevin, I hear your thing. I've heard this a dozen times, but at the same time, I am sympathetic to the position of the health department, and what the health department's role is the public's well-being, okay? And you can't say that we have not had West Nile out here, and you can't say that we have not had equine encephalitis out here, okay? And I certainly am sympathetic to the job that the health department has in doing this. They through Bridget Fleming's office, they offered this as a compromise pilot program to try and get this thing jump-started. And I think I kind of take exception with this accusation that this was some sort of friggin' conspiracy to silence the opposition to methoprene. Quite the contrary, Kevin. I think this was an intention to try and demonstrate that there was an alternative to not just methoprene, but also the wholesale spraying of these marshes.
I didn't use the word conspiracy.
Okay, actually, you pretty much
Jim, let me finish.
You pretty much did say that.
If you'd been in those meetings, as I have, up in Hop Hog, and you've heard the exchange, and ultimately to be present and watch how this played out in 2016, my position is very clear and very firm, quite frankly. Again, as stewards of coastal waters, I think you really need to be clear yourselves that this is an insidious poison that is being sprayed over these marshes. And if it's outside of East Hampton, that matters as well. It's just, I can't see the rationale for this.
Kevin, may I ask a question? You've brought some good points to light, and I think everyone is concerned about the use of poisonous pesticides on our marshes. But what I'm not hearing from you is an alternative or an option or a plan for going forward. You're advocating very strongly, and I'm just curious, do you have something that you can help us with
Yes,
to move
BTI,
forward?
and I've said this multiple times. BTI, the bacterial agent that impacts ultimately the larval stage of mosquitoes.
My understanding of BTI, Kevin, is
That it's not perfect, that...
no, it doesn't act on stage 3 and 4
Correct.
larvae. And that's part of what we're looking at in the marsh, are the stages of the larvae. Last week they did 2 small targeted pelletized droppings of BTI based on what we found. This week they're foregoing spraying at all based on what we found. But I don't know enough about the different treatments of the marsh to really speak intelligently about it, but it is my understanding that BTI isn't effective on all
It's not a
stages.
panacea, I agree, yes.
And I agree with Jim that, the health department does have other considerations.
I guess I'll fall back on Connecticut, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, New York City, Rhode Island, and I looked further. Maine took this up themselves. It never got through the legislature with formality of a ban. That did not happen in the case of Maine. I don't know about the other states. I Google like mad to see if I can find that, but when these other agencies, in particular our neighbor, and I've heard Vector Control argue that we're talking about different types of marshes, the sky's now falling in Connecticut. They discontinued, they stopped using methoprene. Senator Chris Murphy wrote the governor following the ban in methoprene, asking that New York State follow suit. There's interest in having this product discontinued. So to ultimately, go along with the program here from the county level, I feel that, again, for the time being at least, the position of we're opposing methoprene has been mooted, if you will.
Well, it hasn't been mooted, but you know what? It's kind of baby steps. A program or a change in program's got to start from somewhere, okay? And clearly, it was made very, very plain in 2016 that they were not necessarily going to take methoprene out of their toolbox. As a compromise, this program was offered. This is now the second year that it's going on. I think we're seeing some measurable results. Clearly, I think Kim mentioned that they're listening. And you know, you got to start someplace, Kevin. You can rail against the machine here, but you know, I think a lot more good can be done working towards something as opposed to just coming and saying the same thing over and over again. We're trying to work this system towards some final end. But you know what? We recognized in 2016 that the health department was not willing to take a chance on the public safety to remove methoprene at that time from things. They offered this program. We've engaged in that. There's quite a bit of participation here, and I think it's going to bear fruit. But you know, maybe try and participate with us, help us, guide us. You've been on the forefront of this from the beginning. I think more good could be done there to develop a relationship with not only our group, but the Nature Conservancy and Suffolk County Health Department. There, maybe you could have an opportunity to change this from within rather than arguing the point from the outside, if you know what I mean.
I hear you, Jim.
Yeah, you know, I mean, we haven't changed. We have not changed our position, Kevin, on things. But you know, I don't think this board is willing to get up and just rant about this when Bridget Fleming spent a lot of time. You know, she set up several meetings. She did not just let this thing lie. She did not whitewash this thing in a political fashion. I really thought that there was some real good work being done here.
We've also been, I did the mosquito larvae water testing last week, and I walked the salt marshes with Dr. Nicole Mayer of the Nature Conservancy, and we had a very lovely conversation about just this issue, and it came to light. She said, I've been working on this for 10 years. It's been a very long process. So I am very excited about it because you and I have spoken about the methoprene issue, that we need to eliminate it. But I understand that the health department is concerned because people do call up and complain. So it's the wheels of they're in motion, and I'm excited, or I should say, what's the word, reserved in my anticipation that we will eliminate methoprene. That's my goal. That's my goal for working with this program that John and I are kind of spearheading, and Bill's involved as well, and was last year. I think it's a slow process, but it's a process that we're going to have to go through in order for us to make headway, as I think none of us here want to have methoprene sprayed. I mean, I certainly don't.
So Kevin, I mean, if you do have some
But yes, your participation
recommendations,
would be
best
great.
practices that, you know, you can share with this board so we are better informed or could better articulate a position moving forward, you know, I would ask you to be a resource to this board to provide, you know, an executive summary document, some key talking points that are vetted out with some of the background science that you refer to in our discussions here when you present to us. You know, that helps us to, I think, get a foothold here. You know, because that's a piece that we don't have right now. You know, we have the pilot program, we've had the interactions at different levels, and you're making a very strong case when you present to us. And I would ask just if you could follow that up with some recommendations or best practices that might be able to be incorporated in a level 2 program going forward.
My understanding also from Tom, the vector, is that they're targeting only hotspots now. They're not at random spraying everything, which I think is an improvement. You know, they're trying to zero in on just where the hotspots are.
18,000 acres were treated last year, according to...
But this year, since have been here, we've only sprayed just they have only sprayed the hot spots. They're really targeting. So I think what Rick is saying would be very helpful for you to come in, because I'm not a scientist. You are the scientist. Your passion about this, I share, and I'd love to have some more input from you. You and I have discussed this. How did Connecticut ban methoprene? How did they go about it? How long did it take?
Several years. It was ultimately a legislative process with sponsorship and co-sponsorship and vetting and discussions, public hearings, and ultimately having that ban in 13, I believe.
Okay. So do you see us in that progress? Do you see us following the same route, or are we so off base? I mean, how can we get on that?
I don't think so. I believe Suffolk County wants to continue to use methoprene for purposes of nuisance control, not disease prevention. There's a big distinction there. And ultimately, go along as they see fit to basically wean this along. I think we...
Now, Kevin, are you taking your case to the state parks as well? Because, I mean, in East Hampton, there's a significant amount of our marshes that are actually state parkland that we have no control over. We have spoken to Suffolk County Vector Control, and they said, well, gee, because when we were trying to come up with a pilot area, we thought, well, gee, you know what? Take a big piece like that.
I had shared DEC had a policy of no methoprene on state-managed wetlands. For some reason, Suffolk County, Long Island in general, they don't adhere to it.
Okay, well, for whatever reason, we were basically put off by state parks and said, there's no way we're signing on to this pilot program simply because of the liability. So, in terms of doing your missionary work, I think you need to include more than the trustees in your discussion. I think perhaps you could work on the Parks Department to re-examine their position, because that's where we found ourselves a year ago. That was a non-starter. We couldn't get it. We weren't going to get anywhere there.
Okay.
So,
all right, Francis, thank you for latitude and allowing me to expand on this issue. I hope we get there. I really do, because I'm as a scientist, as someone that has invested a great deal of time in researching and information and fact-finding on this subject. I have full convictions that methoprene really needs a stop, period.
And I don't think any of us disagree with you at all.
So to the extent that the board is conscious of their actions, that we ultimately maybe strive for that objective or goal, I think that would be a positive.
And I'd like to hear what information you can come up with as methoprene alternative. If the case is that methoprene is the only, or that BTI is not effective on certain larval stages, what's the alternative?
Well, again,
not right now.
No, I understand, but I'll go back to BTI with the other agencies, Fish and Wildlife Service, State of Connecticut, and until that's shown to be problematic, how do we dismiss these other actions by these agencies to move toward a ban?
So basically, you're saying BTI is effective on all larval stages?
No, you pointed out.
Right, and therein lies the problem. They're saying that they need the methoprene because BTI alone will not suffice.
Okay.
That's...
All right, thank you so much for...
But then it suffices for Connecticut. Why?
No, well, that was my question.
Well,
how did Connecticut
why?
come up...
What's going
Since Connecticut, what's going on in Connecticut since they stopped the use of methoprene?
That's what I'm saying, based on communications with the lobstermen that I've worked with in the past on this, as well as just a purview of the news. There's basically silence. It's a non-issue. So the objections or the concern about West Nile it's a non-factor. So nothing. What gives? Nothing. So let's just do away with methoprene and continue to carry on.
So BTI in Connecticut suffices as an agent?
from
No,
what
but
I'm
it
told.
hasn't, the mosquito population has not enlarged or become,
Well,
I'm basing it on, again, communications, personal communications, and to the extent that I can find reporting on the mosquito issue. And it's,
can you send us some, do you have articles?
oh, absolutely. And I have sent this board in the past
we
documents.
have gotten some things.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well,
So we can
I'm new.
reach out, maybe we can reach out to Connecticut.
There's a file.
Okay, in the office, I'll go find it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Maybe
you.
we can
Thank you
reach
so
out
much.
Thank you,
to
Kevin.
Kevin, find out how it's doing.
Okay. We should probably move on to Kim Barber.
Stations.
Yeah, sure.
Hello. So I'm back to hopefully discuss, I had sent some correspondence after the previous meeting that trustee received for your consideration, clarifying some of those points focused around us seeking permission to deploy those floating upweller shellfish nursery systems at a couple of sites throughout town waters, and then part two, the macroalgae project that maybe we could get to separately too, if we could perhaps start with the
So-
shellfish.
Did Chris get any of the documents between the dock owners and Cornell to review? That was the request.
I had sent the MOU as part of that. I didn't want to include the actual, legal with all the information of the marina holders, but we do have those documents. I thought you just wanted to see the language, so I had sent just the template of that MOU.
Okay.
Yep, it's all within there.
I printed it out.
Okay.
I've not reviewed it. I don't
You've
have
not reviewed it, okay.
If Francis has it, he can pass it to you.
Okay.
So the big-
Can you send that over to Chris?
You can send,
Yeah, that
give that, that's my, print everything out, I'm not sure what we're going to get.
Thank you.
I believe it's the second attachment.
And Kim, what is the time frame for deploying the Fruxes?
Well, our clams are getting big where they're being held now, so we really need to,
wanna
try to
start
move on
moving
this if
early
possible, or we need to find alternative locations outside of town waters, which we could do as well, but, we really wanted to bring a portion of this
Sure.
project here.
Just in review, how many sites was it in East Hampton? waters?
So it was 3 sites and then also Montauk Yacht Club as well. But the 3 sites question for this was the Hog Creek Association dock up in Lionhead, the Sunset Cove Marina 3 Mile, and then 3 Mile Harbor Marina.
We issued a permit already to 3 Mile Harbor Marina. They just filled out our application, and we inspected the site that they were planning to put it on, and the site was agreeable, and we issued a regular trustee permit, with our general application that Chris Carrillo has reviewed, our attorney. So, I guess it doesn't really, do you want the memo of understanding also, or do they just need a permit?
Well, the memo of understanding is just, that's between us and the property
Okay.
holder, but whatever we would need, to gain trustee permission, we could,
Right, well, I think
do
it would be
whatever
helpful to
form
do
it
it in a standardized manner, and, from my perspective, if we get a permit in place on each property, and Chris reviews the MOU, and he's comfortable with it, I would be okay with moving forward. I think it's a program that has benefit for the longer term.
Could we is this something that we can approve tonight, conditional on getting the other information?
that would be
in place?
extremely helpful,
That
just
way-
so we know.
That way she's not waiting necessarily for our next
Another
meeting.
2 weeks.
I guess, are we
I
requesting
don't think
permits
anybody has
from-
any basic opposition to this.
I'd like
Do
to
we?
make a motion
Are
that we approve
can I
it.
have a question first?
Sure.
Are we requesting permits from the individual marinas?
Yes.
Okay, so we might have to reevaluate that because it says everything in that MOU states that we're the ones who handle all the permits. I don't know if they're going to be willing to, we're supposed to be making this as simple as possible for them.
3 Mile Harbor Marina came to us.
Well, what was,
They were enthusiastic in the beginning to get it done, and we were also thrilled they were doing this community effort. So I think it's like the Phragmites renewal.
Yeah,
thing.
but hang on.
Yeah.
This is something that's easily done. Kim can file as the agent for the applicants. We could do, because we're only talking about 2 marinas here tonight, right? We already have 3 Mile.
yes.
We're only
So
talking about two.
Sunset Cove and Hog Creek.
Pretty manageable.
Can I put a motion that we approve these, and you could get us the paperwork, and we can move on this?
Second that.
That sounds great. Oh, thank you so much.
Bill seconded it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Okay, great. So we'll correspond just to make sure I have the correct paperwork I'm dealing with, and we'll take it from there? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
There's macroalgae.
Yes.
Get to that.
All right.
Please put me on the email as well. I'm just not up to speed, but I'll be happy to come up to speed as quickly as you need.
Yes, I'll send you everything. Thank you. Okay. Yes, so macroalgae. We have Kim Shaw here tonight as well, who could help kind of define some of the aspects of the project that we were talking about last time and give a little more clarification on some of those issues. But to recap, we're seeking permission to put out our cages of macroalgae to local native species, to study them for their bioextraction capabilities, to address some of the nutrient problems that are happening in the Pussy's Pond aquaponic complex.
Are these all species that are naturally found in this water body at the present time?
Yes, and we'd actually be harvesting them from the local
So we're not going to be
stock.
introducing any new?
No.
Absolutely not.
All should have this letter of support from the water quality committee.
Came earlier.
Thank you.
Thanks,
These came
Do you
in
have
today.
one?
Yeah, I saw it earlier.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So we met on site last week with Kim and went over the, what they're doing there. They've got small cages that look like, where they used to grow the eelgrass on. They're held down by bricks. It's in a very shallow area, maybe water less than 2 feet deep. It's closed to shellfishing, so I don't think we're going to have a conflict with anybody else using that area. And the long term is to find, potential uses for, fishermen in the area that, want to do grow-outs during the winter and potentially have a product to sell, a marketable product. That's what we're doing. This similar project has been done in the town of Southampton, town of Riverhead, and fairly successful.
Yeah, and the feasibility market study analysis of it is interesting too. We did that with our kelp aquaculture feasibility study we did in Peconic estuary, looking for beneficial uses for this macroalgae once it is harvested.
What are your prospective markets at this time?
Everything from, well, not necessarily with the kelp culinary, but with this I could see more soil amendments for agricultural purposes. That could be a good primary one just because of the nutrient content it'll have in it.
Fertilizer.
Yep.
You can just imagine somebody branding that.
What do you expect to be the primary species here that you're?
It's Gracilaria and Ulva.
Okay.
We're doing 30 cages to start, and the majority is, the Ulva's only going to be
in a couple of them, yeah.
Maybe less than 10. So it's very elaborate. The cages are set up with strings. All the algae is then clipped on there, put out by hand, GPSed, and then on a weekly basis, there's going to be monitoring. My staff is going to be assisting in the monitoring part of it, so that Cornell doesn't.
What are you monitoring?
Growth and just making sure everything's where it's supposed to be, and when it's time to harvest based on growth rates.
So we're going to be doing clippings, measuring weight and all that, so that they can measure uptake of nitrogen, basically. And it was really interesting. It was really interesting. Before we went to Aquaponic, we had gone to Louse Point and picked up some of the same exact algae that we're going to be growing out in Aquaponic. And we had a very wimpy, tiny little piece of Glyceria, and we went to Aquaponic as we were just going through the algae that's growing there naturally. It was so much more robust, full in color, and twice the size, 3 times the size of what we found there. So we have a problem. We have a nutrient problem there, and you could see just in the native algae that's growing there how more robust it is from an area that has no development to a area that's very dense.
So, can I ask a question, Kim? So there's a 2-pronged approach here. One is future economic potential, and one is environmental benefit.
Right.
So this is a little similar to the harvesting the algae on George Capone.
We're putting it in. You're taking it out, but yeah, it's
Well,
similar.
you're putting it in and taking it out.
Yeah. It is. So, you know,
You're using a natural.
Oh, I've seen it, man. I think it's
Yes.
a great idea to do
Growing the
something.
algae.
Oh, no, we're collecting it right from Aquaculture, yes.
So in a way, it is similar, because you're taking a product from the harbor, moving it to a different part of the harbor, growing it to a larger size, and then extracting it.
Extracting it before it dies a
Yeah,
natural
before it
death and accumulates on the bottom. And
This is in Pussy's Pond you're doing this?
it's right outside Dell where
Is there any, are you worried about the muskrats?
not anymore.
Well,
No,
so
no.
we hope, but I mean, they will eat algae.
Yeah, no, we have like a screen mesh.
Oh.
We're more concerned with, you know, the avian population.
Oh, okay.
area, But
Cool.
it does have a screen mesh on it.
And everything you haven't had repercussions with muskrats over there?
No, not today.
Nice. Good.
But this is part of a larger plan. You know, we're concentrating CPF monies on water quality improvement projects. And this is just triage. You know, we started in Pussy's Pond, you know, with the bank stabilization, with planting, with bioswales, with reactive barrier, and now with additional monies from buy-in from Aquaculture Harbor Protection Committee, we were able to do additional monitoring outside on that culvert and find out we still had a problem with extremely high nitrogen levels coming out of that, weeping out of those banks. And so we've targeted this project as a pilot, just to see, you know, what type of improvement we can see. You know, we're working with Springs General Store. They're looking to put in, you know, an advanced nitrogen removal system for their waste treatment. Springs School is coming on board. But all of these things take time, and that's a couple years out. So for, you know, a quick fix and to stop the bleeding, these are, you know, simple passive projects that we can.
now, hey, you know, after the permeable reactive barriers, have your water quality test improved?
Surfrider is testing the areas, and it takes time. You know, we've only had this project in place for less than a year, and, you know, groundwater travel time in this area that we're targeting is 0 to 2 years, and we have constant input, and we're slowly, you know, trying to remediate, and this is just another project that's going to be a passive.
Yeah, but the distance between your permeable reactive barrier and the water body isn't a 2-year travel time. It's
No.
literally.
No, there's data from the permeable reactive
Yes.
barrier project.
And it's been very effective, very effective.
They're showing, yeah, the nitrogen in those wood
We
chips
just got
is-
the report, and I'd be glad to come back to this board and present the data that we got. Very impressive. It was so effective that we were seeing like what we're calling a halo effect. So typically, groundwater is coming through the barrier and being treated, and we were finding that we were treating a larger area, so our control was being treated before. So we were getting, instead of 10s and 7s and 8s coming in, we were already seeing treatment higher up in the upland. So we moved our controls, and I think you're going to be very impressed with the numbers that we're seeing for nitrogen reduction in that area. We're having a different, where we're doing this project with this macroalgae, we have a different problem in that we have ammonia. So we're seeing 0 treatment. And we would have to we can't simply install a reactive barrier there because we'd have to treat that area before we could put in a barrier. It wouldn't be effective. And so we're trying this macroalgae, going to do something else on the upland. So, you know, triage.
So who is the applicant for this project?
It's Cornell, but it's, you know, a project in partnership with the town, funded by CPF, so there's a strong, you know, partnership already. And it's part of, you know, the other projects Kim had mentioned, you know, that aren't all led by us.
And what is the timeline for this project?
Tomorrow?
To get this type of data, we want summer data, so the sooner these cages could hypothetically get out there, the more robust our data set.
Now, how big an area are we talking about this project going on in terms of surface, square footage, or whatever of the pond or the area that you're planning on treating?
believe it's all in, it's further noted in the correspondence that included the actual application for the project, but, gosh, what would you ask?
There's one close to shoreline and then one central area, but
Okay,
it's,
but the area that you're operating in is roughly how big? Is it 1 acre, 2?
no,
gosh, no.
much less than a couple hundred.
Maybe 100 feet long?
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're,
yeah,
you know,
it's
the
de minimis.
cages themselves are about this big, and there's about 10 cages
Like
each.
this.
They're cages, they look like the racks that you see bread come into the grocery store, basically that size.
So Kim, could you provide us with a sketch and a permit application?
That's all in
Yes,
there.
everything's in
It's all in
that
No, I
correspondence.
just want to get an understanding of
So we still
how
might
it
require
relates
just a
to the
basic permit to be
projects.
filled out,
Okay,
general permit. So we probably want to issue a permit for something like this, not unlike the Flipsies.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal to do it, but I think we would want to follow standard protocol.
So I will then, I can file on behalf of the town with the trustees, because I have, the application, I have all the sketches, all the schematics, a lot of...
It'd be nice to get one clean package and then the application as a cover to that, and,
yeah, the full application is in that correspondence as well, and it has more information on this. I'm sorry, I can't pull it up, and I don't have a paper copy.
Yeah, it's I believe Francis has it.
Does it have a trustee application? Permit
The big
application?
thick, it has maybe a black thing on the end.
Oh, yeah, there's no trustee application currently,
No, but
but
it's the
everything
whole
we would need
project
for it is, yeah.
Yeah, I think you just need a cover with the trustee
Okay.
application. And
We applied to New York State DEC on behalf of the town, applied to DEC, and we got a scientific license to collect data. So it was a type 2 action with the New York State DEC, and so no environmental review required, similar to Georgia Pond. So,
well, is this something we could do contingent upon receiving a permit and
Yeah, that we
so they can
could
get
go
started?
forward with it now, and
How like realistically, how imminent is this? Is this so imminent that it's going to happen before our next meeting?
Well, the original plans, I guess the late start date was going to be, what, July 1st? Or they want 3 months of solid data.
we want to
pretty
get in
much, the
before
summer.
July, before warm water.
All right, so you'd like us to move on this tonight?
Yes.
Ideally.
Yeah, all right. I'll make a motion that we approve it.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Kim, how many years do you want to do this?
Oh, it's just a pilot study. This is just one year of this, and then we'll see, it will be something that will determine the success, and then see where we go from there, with expanding it or realizing it's not a good fit, or,
And we'd love to see data from this and the permeable barrier and.
yes, I think that report
An
we
ongoing
were still
report.
waiting for data to get crunched.
You guys
Just
have
got
gone
it
to this
last
work. So it sounds like you're really doing some good stuff.
So all this is going to go back to the Water Quality Committee. I know the trustees are represented on that, so you're definitely in the loop. Like I said, a pilot project, let's, whatever we can do that's passive, not a, and improve water quality. So monitoring.
Great.
did you want to, do you guys see the letter, request for support?
Yeah.
That's what I handed out, Bill.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we got them earlier, right?
Yeah.
So do we want to talk about
Good, thank you very much.
rising the clerk to...
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you.
Kim?
So I don't even want to open this issue, but many of you know I worked for Suffolk County for almost 20 years. So if you need a presentation or more additional information on methoprene, on the vector control long-term plan, I'd love to come back another time and prep for it. But, I can give you a history and overview of all the assessments that were done associated with that, and then the next steps that followed the vector control long-term plan. There was supposed to be a strategic plan that was done after that, and that sort of fell in disarray with the county. But, Tom Winkoff is a great guy with the county. Dr. Scott Campbell is with health end of mosquito control. Maybe you want to invite one or more of them out here for that, but what we're doing in Aquaculture right now, and the trustees are supporting, is very similar to what was done at Wertheim National Refuge. So we did pre-project monitoring, which was looking at multiple different levels of potential impacts, pore water analysis, ducts, we looked at everything. and then actually did a marsh manipulation. Omwam is a four-letter word that no one likes to talk about, but what was done at Wertheim was, I think, a success. They went from spraying 10 times a season to less than one, with some tweaks to the project. And Wertheim is a large national park next to a very, very dense population, nothing like Aquaponic, 10,000 plus square foot lots. And the nuisance and the complaints from there drove the county to do, a marsh restoration project there, where they created a tidal influence, which changed the salinity and knocked back the frag. And the frag is where you were having all the breeding in the upper marsh. And what Suffolk County is doing now with Aquaponic and targeting and looking at those hot spots, they realized that the methoprene was not actually making it past the fronds in the Phragmites, and so it's a granular application which actually is weighted and gets down to where the larvae are, and it was successful last year, and they're continuing this year. So it's a much more focused and targeted application.
Kim, could you maybe come back, because this sounds like a pretty more in-depth
That's what I said,
issue. When would you like to come back?
Well,
and
let me
visit?
just introduce Nicole Mayer from the Nature Conservancy, who's kind of leading this Aquaponic project, has also agreed to come and speak. I wonder if it might be a good thing to try to coordinate, have a methoprene night or something.
Yeah.
Well, when would you like to have that?
Well, maybe we can coordinate between Kim
Yeah.
and Nicole and come up with a date. But I don't think we can do that right now. That'd be
No, but you're doing the right thing. You're moving in the right direction. And it was 3 years of pre-project monitoring at Wertheim. So you're in year 2, and you've seen the maps and the emails that just came out, that they really only focused and targeted certain areas. And it's baby steps, The marsh manipulation is a much larger project, very expensive, but definitely worthwhile.
Yeah, but you know what? We are running into issues. For example, Aquaponic is a good example. County has only interest in dredging the beach-compatible sand and navigable portions of Aquaponic. So that leaves the non-beach compatible areas, and what do you do with that spoil? I know, like over in Connecticut and Rhode Island, they've done some marsh restoration work, elevating marshes, things like that. Is this something that perhaps plays into that?
Well, the county is looking at something very similar, and the park in Riverhead, what's it called? Indian Island? And they have a huge restoration project. It's taken years, it's millions of dollars, but they're moving forward with that. They're creating tidal channels to increase flushing. There, it was a little bit different. It was a moonscape. It was a dredge-spoiled deposition area where nothing grew. But they're looking to improve water quality and habitat restoration in there. So it's not out of... The only problem I see with Aquaponic is we're so far away from Yaphank and for the cruise and stuff. So they're going to focus their energies on projects that are closer to them that reduces costs.
Surely, but you know what I really liked what you said earlier? Was how some of the CPF money is now maybe being directed in areas other than septic systems, and perhaps that this could be packaged into one of those projects.
The dredging component of it?
Yeah.
Perhaps,
Or
yeah.
the marsh restoration.
Well, I think they're
Yeah.
I think they're kind of one and the same. They're components of the same project.
We'd have to probably do some testing on the material we want to dredge, but that would
Right.
seem to be compatible with elevating the marsh or filling in ditches
That was a component of Wertheim. I'll send you guys some of the information on Wertheim where they took material, they filled in the ditches and created ponds and pans and lightly sprayed the material over the marsh to fill in those areas. There's a lot of technology that, a lot of people don't want to see machinery on the marsh, but some of the low volume and low pressure machinery really was very effective. when I was first on Wertheim and walking through there, you couldn't see 2 feet in front of you. When the person in front of you went through the frag, you were lost, and it was very claustrophobic. It was crazy. And then after the tidal sluice channel was put in there and the ditches were filled and the ponds and pans were made, our monitoring efforts were so much different, because where we saw no fish in the ditches, once we created the ponds and pans, it was like popcorn. The fish were all over the place. And our methodology for sampling and monitoring totally changed. So I'll send you the Wertheim report. It's really impressive, and it still needs some tweaks, but it needs money. But it's something that's doable in Aquaponic, with either CPF or grant money or whatever.
That would be terrific. Thank you
Kim,
very
thank
much.
you.
Sure.
Thank you, Kim. Is there anyone else who wants to address the board? Okay, let's move on to our agenda. New business, aquaculture, request from John Barley Dunn for funds for hatchery supplies.
Yeah, Barley's made a request that the trustees pick up the tab for a clipping machine to make cages for his
It's
operation.
a hog ring,
It's
like a pneumatic hog
it's a
ring.
pneumatic,
Yeah.
and they're more like little sleeves that can
Yeah.
only be
Yep.
compressed by this machine.
How much is that?
That's $798.75.
Yeah.
And also, part of that money is also 3/8 sinking line and clips for the machine. He's also made a request for 3/4-inch PVC pipe, which would act as clips on the ends of the shellfish bags.
Yep.
$591.60. So it comes to about $1,400 total. There's $5,000 in the aquaculture line from the town budget. So I thought that would be a place to take it from.
I've used those ring things. I've used the manual ones, and you know what? You get carpal tunnel before you get done doing whatever you do.
Yeah.
I would make a motion, we approve.
Okay, just explain that in the past, even back when you were in aquaculture, the trustees shared that budget line with the aquaculture program, where we would help buy equipment or materials.
Yeah.
So this is,
Maybe not all of it.
no,
Yeah.
but we shared it with you.
Yeah.
And so is basically what they're asking for.
Yeah, I think we should support this update. Hopefully it'll lead to enhanced production and more efficiencies with the crew.
So I'd like to make a motion to fund these two bills.
I will second it.
All in favor? Got it. Okay, Education Committee.
Well, this is the light, colorful moment of the meeting, I think. So I just wanted to bring this in. When we had gone, Brian Burns, myself, and somebody from Aquaculture went in to John Marshall's elementary school. I, being a cartoonist and illustrator, wanted to do something that was fun for the kids, that they could understand right away what this meant. And it's all the debris of balloons that I have found in the community over the time, and I decided to make a balloon fish, since we have so many marine animals that are affected and dying and found dead, washed ashore. Oh, thank you. So this is my balloon fish, and I actually used a picture of a balloon fish, and one child said to me, that is not a balloon fish because it's blown up from eating balloons, and very smart, my dad's a fisherman. So a few people have said to me, let's make T-shirts out of this. And I was thinking for the education committee that the Rysam Scholarship Fund, which could use some more funds, we could make T-shirts, sell them at the clam bake, sell them at the Fisherman Fair in the Springs. Or just clam contest or whatever, but, and on the back have East Hampton Town Trustee, and on the front I need a logo that would just be short and sweet, but something to the effect that fish don't like balloons or don't feed fish balloons, something that would convey that, because I'm really trying to get kids away from balloons and parents away and real estate brokerages and make them understand that our marine life is greatly affected. So I was hoping that you might support this, since it's for the Rysam Scholarship Fund.
I think it's a great idea.
And I don't have the details or anything, but if
I think in principle, it's a great idea.
come up with a slogan that we all would like, and
And maybe basic cost of producing some T-shirts and things like that to bring before the board.
yes. So if you like my little balloon picture, then I'll go forward and,
I think it's cool.
Generally, when is the Fisherman's Fair?
I think it's August. It's usually like the second weekend of
Put me down
Yeah,
for
I think so.
shovel.
So the pressure's on.
Wear them.
Pressure's on? Okay, well, I work well under pressure.
Well, you know, they have that fair in Montauk, too. In
Okay.
September, that would be a good place to perhaps.
Okay.
Great,
And
great
Arlene
informational.
suggested V-neck for women, crew neck for, you know,
Don't do any wife beater.
Yeah,
Leave that up to you.
sizes get complicated, but
yeah. But
you'll figure it out.
okay, thank you very much.
So what, is it going to be you'll have a cost?
I will have, yes, I will
We
figure
have
out how
any
much
rough
it
ideas
costs.
with
And I'll bring it
t-shirts
I just wanted to ask you if you thought it was a good idea.
We all think it's a good idea.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, Georgica Committee. Application of George Blatt, ZBA Village Public Hearing. Greg Blatt, sorry. 14 Hook Pond Lane.
I did not go to the hearing on that. That was on the 8th or 9th, was it? That's the day it was scheduled.
It was last Friday. Oh, Friday, June 8th.
Yeah, no, it was a
quite some
while ago.
time ago. Yeah. Okay. I don't have the actual.
I don't know the application.
Here it is. Modify the design of a previously approved swimming pool, pool house fencing, construct a generator. Variances of 8.8 feet, 5.9 feet. 14 Hook Pond Lane. Anybody know
Yeah, I know
exactly?
where the house is. It's a pre-existing house. There's actually a little pond the house butts up to.
Is it on the pond, on Hook Pond itself?
Yes.
It is,
it's on,
directly on.
It's not on Hook Pond itself. It is on that, you know, there's Town Pond, then there's that little pond. It might actually be on Hook.
It is the end of Hook Pond.
Yeah, actually it is.
It's a little,
It's like a little cove over there.
Okay. So where do we go from here with it?
Well,
Was the comment period still open?
Is the comment period still open? I can go in tomorrow and look at this, pull the file and have a look at it.
Yeah, I don't,
I called the attorney's office, and he wasn't, when I called his office, his secretary said he was over at the village. He didn't know the status of the application.
Okay.
So that was
Because I
just
think
yesterday.
this
So
is a
it-
different attorney. from
No,
what they s-
Francis has it there. Is it John Tarbett?
Tarbett must.
Okay, because they started out with a different attorney.
Yeah, it's Jonathan.
Yeah, I think they started with Andy Hammond.
Francis, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
That meeting actually happened just on Friday last. It was postponed from the 8th because of the funerals that were taking place that day.
Okay, so. Thank you.
So, yeah, we might see that the public comment period is still open.
It probably is. I'll go in and pull a file tomorrow on it.
All right. You want to add the water quality?
Yeah.
The water level
Received an email from the Friends of Georgica Pond regarding the water level monitoring device that's on Georgica Pond, and they've requested that we add it to the trustee website. It's apparently some part of a requirement with one of the agencies that we're working with, as well as I think it would be helpful for the public to have more awareness of the water levels on Georgia Pond. So before the Records Committee went ahead and did that, I just wanted to run it by the board. Is everyone in principle okay with that? Okay, great, thank you.
Okay. Napeag Lazy Point, cover letter from Gordon Ryan on his lease. Is there a copy of that here?
Yeah.
Marlene?
Yes,
Copy in
and
the file.
Jim had a copy.
Yeah, I looked at it. I think there's no issues with the lease. Now, there was one small, I guess slightly contentious issue regarding a split rail fence. Okay, Arlene brought it to my attention. I went in there and looked at it, and I spoke to Gordon Ryan about it, and then went back there and looked at it. The fence is clearly on what is the yard that Gordon Ryan rents. What it does do is it runs a little close to the neighbor's driveway. But what it really looks like, the reason for the fence is over the years, the neighbor has been kind of gradually encroaching into Gordon Ryan's property. And this is just, his concern was if things continued the way it was, he was going to find himself talking either to us or the town of East Hampton on an overclearing violation. So,
What side of his residence? Is it to the west or the
It's west,
east?
right?
The west side?
West.
yeah, west.
The house that's closer to his property, they kind of are
Yeah,
side by side,
yeah,
and the
yeah, and
driveway
they have a
runs up.
trailer, the one that has the
There's a camper,
the
camper
camper
right
trailer
there.
in there.
camper in the driveway.
Yeah, with the
It's not the one we
awning that,
discussed a
like,
few weeks ago. is it?
No, this has been
yeah,
there for
with
a
the
while.
awning, that if, when you open the awning, I think you're actually, like, in Gordon's airspace, more or less.
Covering the bicycles over there.
Yeah, yeah, so I know we had received sort of not a complaint specific about it, but a concern that it was quite the opposite, that Gordon was impinging on the neighbor's property. It's not the case at all. It's really the other way around.
This on half of Lot 10S, is that where this fence is? I mean, who, is the neighbor on the other half? Or we rent the other
No,
half?
it sounds like the neighbors are only,
I think 10S is to the east of his property. I think 9
Yeah,
is.
I think it's the one, the other 9 maybe.
9 is his main lot, and then 10S is to the east, where there's a undeveloped
So it's the
parcel.
main lot and the neighbor's main lot.
Correct, would probably be
The
8.
fence is between those two lots.
yes.
Yes, that's correct.
And these lots are, how are they marked? I mean, how-
There is actually, he has concrete monuments on them. You can't miss them. They're painted orange. You can actually see them from the satellite photo.
It's like going there diving.
Yeah, it's like the rocks.
Yellow, exactly.
So what are we being asked to do?
Just renew his lease.
No, should we vote to approve the fence? He asked for approval of his fence, so.
If we're looking for a motion, I would make a motion to approve the
I'll
fence.
second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, move on to old business, committee reports, aquaculture. Do we need to speak about the larval survey?
The mosquito survey?
Yeah.
That's under
Yeah,
agriculture?
That's what I have here.
Or harbor management. That might be under harbor management.
The Peconic Harbor mosquito larvae?
Yeah,
You want to recategorize it, or just do it?
Go for it.
no, just,
All right, well, we had a little,
next meeting we'll
we
recategorize.
had a little presentation with maps, but it looks like we're not going to get to there, so
Are they
it's, nothing is,
not working?
well,
In
it's
trouble. That's
Updating?
5% of updates are done,
Oh, no. During our meeting.
yeah.
So we have to give a verbal update.
So we've done 2 surveys last week and this morning. After last week's survey, the sampling showed that there were limited hot spots containing more than 10 mosquitoes in certain areas. So vector control was able to just limit the spraying to 2 hot spots, sort of halfway up the creek near the upland. And they did that with pelletized, well, I guess BTI and pelletized methoprene. And then today we modified our sampling technique a little bit. Last week there was sort of a holdup because the recording took a long time. Everybody had to type in their name, and everybody had to type in zeros. If they didn't find mosquitoes, they had to type in 5 zeros for all the different stages. So that took quite a bit of time. We kind of modified the survey so that we didn't have to do that every time. And we're also able to use some people's personal phones in order to record some of the sample sites. So we got many more sample sites done today. And Vector Control sent an email out in the afternoon saying that they won't have to do any spraying this week on the marsh as a result of our sampling. So that's about where we stand.
That's real serious progress, actually. I mean, they weren't willing to listen to us 2 years ago, right?
Well, I'm personally
Kevin couldn't stick around for this.
I'm personally surprised at how few larvae we're finding. I mean, most of the samples you come up with nothing. It's really only in a few selected spots, little pools.
Today we had very few findings of, there was one area in particular in the uplands across a row of Phragmites where many were found. Other than that, we basically had nothing. It was very, very, very few. And we covered today we covered Louse Point, which we hadn't covered before. And we did backtrack. Tom had asked us at Vector Control to go to different areas with different teams so that nobody was doing the same thing. But the description that Kim gave of being in the Phragmites and walking through, suddenly I'm looking for Matt Grasso of Nature Conservancy. I said, Matt, where are you? And he's saying, I'm over here. I'm saying, where? But yes, and I will add that I fell into 2 holes today, and I thought, christened my boots.
How many other communities or townships are doing this kind of?
None that I'm aware of.
Well, there was a comparable study, where was it, up in Riverhead last year? I don't know what, there was another area that was done.
Is that the Indian Island site?
It might have been.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I don't know what they're doing this year, if anything.
I think it helps to raise awareness, and it seems like from a community perspective, we're seeing less flyovers of the helicopters, so hopefully we are seeing a little bit of a net reduction of the methoprene while maintaining safety.
Well, I think, the ultimate goal here is to try to see if the marsh can be worked on in order to identify where the real breeding areas are and see if they can be modified in such a way that they're not as conducive to breeding. And a lot of that has to do with sort of tweaking the drainage pattern. So if it's like a pooled area that contains water, rainwater, brackish water can be drained slightly into a ditch or someplace where the water's going to be carried off the marsh, that might be, a stopgap way of dealing with it. And some of these panned areas, these areas where the marsh dies, they form little pools, and those pools are breeding sites, can be reconstituted if the water kind of has a way to get out of them. It's the water, my understanding is it's the water that pools, that gets trapped in areas that then kills off the roots of the marsh grasses. And
This
then,
is fresh water or tidal water?
It's
Sometimes
if there's tidal water, there's generally not mosquitoes. So the places that pool water I'm sure they'll get salt water in them in very high tides, but generally I think it's kind of a brackish situation.
Kim alluded to salinity being a positive impact on reduction of larvae.
Kim mentioned some of these techniques when she was
Briefly.
talking here, and then, then the larger issue goes to, forming larger ponds in, an open marsh management kind of a situation.
We also saw fish today, small fish, so there were no mosquito larvae, but little fish swimming, so that's a good sign as well.
Little fish, why there's no larvae?
Right.
Yeah, exactly, it's a good sign.
Hopefully they're
Good
eating
sign.
them.
But the marsh was fairly flooded today, too.
It was high tide.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had that rain last night.
Yeah.
Which may have contributed to fewer mosquitoes. That's what Matt Grosso said.
That's what we were thinking too, maybe because it was a high tide situation. And that rain last night might have kind of flushed things away.
Now, this is the second week of testing, correct?
This is the
Yes.
second
So we
week.
have 8 more to go.
And I think the week before you
Was it
did your
training?
first one, they did do a spraying, I believe.
I
think
know
we
it's
did-
been on the list for
Yeah.
a couple
I
of
think
weeks.
they did 1 or 2 sprayings.
Mhm.
I have a question about one of our water samplers who is in school, and she has decided that she would not like to be paid, but rather have community credit for that. So we were wondering how we handle that. Do
We just did,
Arlene, or-
I asked her to submit her time cards, and instead of
Right.
money, we'll give her a letter.
Yeah, exactly. So we could hire someone else
We could.
if we needed someone.
Do you need another body?
We don't know until
We could.
Monday morning at 7
Sounds like,
o'clock.
yeah, Monday you see who's there, right?
Yeah, some people canceled right before or say I can't make it, and so we could use somebody on standby.
Well,
We have
I thought,
several
didn't we talk about having
names.
that arrangement?
what arrangement?
Like 1 or 2 extras for
Yes, we
fill
did.
in?
We have.
We did have an extra.
Yeah, we have
Okay.
some,
And we
a couple
didn't
of
have an
backups.
extra. And now we have 5, which was the allotted amount to be paid. And so far, it's been adequate. I don't,
I'm going to
We'll
make a
see how we
suggestion, which after today, that we always have somebody, 2 people go together, because that's a good safety measure. After I took my little spill, I realized it's a good thing to have, and we don't want to be liable. Yeah, always
Well,
have
you
a
have
partner
2
with
groups
you.
of 3.
today we had 3, right? No, we
Today
had 3 last
but then we
week.
did separate. We kind of went off on our own, covering a large area, because we do have some large areas that we're doing. It's quite a hike. So,
Have we ever thought about, we were talking a lot tonight about stopping the use of methylprednisolone, all on Suffolk County. Have we ever maybe, or can we think about maybe sending a letter to, say, the Southampton Town Trustees or the Southold Town Trustees, and explaining to them what we're doing and giving them some data of our findings, and maybe trying to get them on board to maybe
that's a
start
good idea.
thinking
Yeah.
about doing the
Sure.
same kind of thing?
Yeah, that'd be a good idea.
I mean, we shouldn't be the only one. If we want to rid methylprednisolone throughout all of Suffolk County, we shouldn't be the only one doing these testings.
I think
We
since
should get
Bridget
more
Fleming
people
was
on
very
board. I think the
instrumental
more
in getting
people on
this one
board, the
off the
more
ground,
voice
I'd be happy to
there is
contact
to
Bridget to see if she could
say, you
reach
know
out.
what,
Absolutely.
let's stop the
Right.
use of this.
Yeah, and, Al Krupski's
Let's
up in
really-
the North Fork as well as
Yeah.
his counterpart. So maybe there's some synergy in the program. It's a good idea.
I'm not sure if the Nature Conservancy is working with other trustee bodies or towns on the island, maybe we will kind of want to find that out before we duplicate.
Yeah,
Ask Nicole.
Yeah, maybe you can check in at sometime in the near future.
Yeah, well, I will contact Nicole and the Nature Conservancy to see what they know about what's being done in other parts of the East End, and, run this idea by them, that, maybe bring in some other trustee or towns.
All communities should be on board to try and stop the use of.
Well, the more people we have involved that are doing the program and galvanize the effort, that would be a good direction.
Absolutely.
So we'll follow up on that.
All right, move on to beaches. Trash cans on the beach.
So I had a big, nice presentation I was going to show you on the computer as well. I know I've been blowing it off every week. Tonight I promised myself I was going to do it. I don't care how late we were going to be here till. and we have no computer.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
I really appreciate that.
I really don't care.
4 to 6 more minutes.
But I want to say that I did have a talk with the old beach manager, and I don't mean that age-wise. I meant he was the previous beach manager at the village, and had a nice talk with him. However, the new beach manager was there too, and he wouldn't even look at me. And I was told by the previous beach manager, Del, he's not going to look at you. He's not going to talk to you. He's a little upset about the way you handled things, which I thought was really childish, as I expected. I'm not giving up on this. For a minute last week, I kind of made you maybe feel like I was going to work something out and maybe give a little bit. The more I think about it and the more loud mouths I've heard over this past week, I'm not giving up on this beach trash can thing. I don't care how hard I have to scream about it. This has nothing to do with how good the village or the town keeps these garbage cans clean. Trash does not belong on the beach, neither does the source in which it's put into. The receptacles don't belong on the beach, they belong in the parking lots where they've always been. Putting them in the beach, as I'm going to show you next week when we have our presentation, I've got a 50-picture show. I'm going to show you every single picture, and we can talk about it. You can say anything you want. But these cans get kicked over, they get abused, trash gets spread all over the beach, the animals bring it to the water, if not the elements. It doesn't belong there. There's nothing right about it. I don't care if it makes it easier for people. That's not how we're going to conduct this carry-in, carry-out policy. It's by trying to do it with garbage cans on the beach. They don't belong there. I don't care if you empty them at 8 o'clock at night and come back and empty at 4 in the morning. Because from 8 at night till 4 in the morning, they're going to be abused, and garbage is going to hit the beach, and it's going to end up in the water. And just one time is too many for me. And I'm sick and tired of seeing it. I've seen it more times than any of you have seen it. I've got pictures to prove it. And I've had it. I've had it with the chip on the shoulder. Because when I came out of this meeting with the village, from what I got was, these people aren't going to budge, Del. You're barking up the wrong tree. You're butting your head into something you have no idea the trouble you're going to get back. And you know what? I don't like that shit. I don't like being told that shit. I don't play that. I don't play it on the outside before I became a trustee, and I ain't playing it here as a trustee. I have no political aspirations after my term here, and I don't care how you all feel about this. This is something that's personal to me, it's a passion, and it's bullshit that we have to constantly see our beaches and our roadsides covered with trash. I'm done. I've had it. I'm fixing it. And if you don't fix it, I'm going to scream louder and louder until somebody comes to the table and fixes it. And starting with getting these cans off the village beaches. Now, they're weighted down. I said, Ed, how about we move them out at night? That would satisfy me if at the last pickup of the day, you pull them off the beach and put them next to the parking lot. And in the morning, you come back and you put them back on the beach. Spread them nice and equally like you have them right now, which, by the way, when I met them the other day, they were about, or a couple of weeks ago, they couldn't have been more than 15 or 20 feet from the parking lot. And that's because there wasn't a lot of beach. The more beach that comes along during the summer, the closer they're going to get to the water. You'll see. I've got the pictures. But now they're back 20 feet from the ones in the parking lot. What's the sense? Person can't take 20 more steps to bring it up to the parking lot? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So why couldn't they bring them at night after the last dumping? Because they've weighted them down now. They've weighted them down. So now it's difficult, they said. It's heavy. It's a lot of work to lift them up every night. Well, let me tell you how much work it is for me and how much disgust it is for me to get there at 4, 5 a.m. in the morning to shoot the sunrise and have to clean up the beach so I don't have garbage in my friggin' picture. I'm tired of it, and it's going to stop. And I'm asking you guys to help me. And I'm not going to fight about it with you people here as a Board of Trustees. If the village is going to not conform to what we decide, or if the trustees decide that they don't want to agree with me. If you all want to do it that way, don't think I'm going to stop there, because I'm not. I'm not. It's ridiculous. But I bet you're going to find out something different. Because if you all do agree with me about this garbage can issue, and we ask the village to get them off the beach, wait till you see what happens then. Okay? Let's see. All right, I'm done with this subject.
Can
What's next?
can we send them a letter as a board?
Sure, but wouldn't we want to vote to see if that's in fact what we want to do? Are we ready to do that? Or do you want me to convince you 100% that this is not a good idea? If we're going to try to push it, if we're going to try to create a carry-in, carry-out policy, which we should, the town's interested in doing it, it should be done. I mean, we're so concerned about alternative energy and stopping methaprene, but we're going to keep friggin' garbage cans on the beach? Come on, people. That's a no-brainer. That's a simple one we can fix. Simple.
Hey, Del, last time we were talking about this, one of the topics was maybe trying to identify a pilot beach that could be the place where something like this starts.
Yeah.
And
I think you got to demonstrate it.
it seems like things didn't develop kind of in that direction.
Right.
And I was just wondering, is there any update on that, or is there a way we could maybe reapproach?
Well, the way I approached, I was open to any suggestion. But as soon as I saw the chips on the shoulders and the childish behavior, I was completely turned off. And I'll tell you what, pilot schmilot. Let's get the trash cans off the beach. I'll show you how effective it'll be. And well, what? I mentioned this early on, and I don't want to bring out names, but somebody mentioned to me, oh, Del, if you do that, the village says they're not going to do garbage pickup. What the hell does that mean? What does that mean? If we take the garbage cans off the beach, they're not going to do their pickups at the parking lot? What sense does that make? Is that a punishment for us having to take the garbage cans off the beach? Look, if you don't agree with me, let's take a vote, and you don't agree with me. I won't bring it up here in a trustee forum anymore, and I'll deal with it on the outside like I've been doing for 8 years.
Del, are these cans on any other village beach besides Main Beach?
Yes. Okay. They're on all the village beaches from 2 Mile Hollow to Georgia.
I don't use the village beaches, so I don't know.
I've got letters just this past week of residents who are very well-respected residents who pick up garbage on the beach in the Georgia area every morning, 7 days a week. She's been calling me constantly, Del, these garbage cans are ridiculous on the beach. They're causing so much problem. We're pulling garbage out of the water. I've got pictures I was going to show you tonight, and I was going to read her letter. But I think, I pretty much hope that my emotions, I know you all know I'm a bit high-strung, but you can tell right now, this is really, I'm done with this crap. It's ridiculous.
I think it would help for the public to see your photography.
I'm going to show it. I'm going to show it.
I think it's powerful, and,
I've got people that drive on the beach that are concerned now that these things are weighted down. These are fishermen that are already afraid of hitting these things in the morning, as they were. Now, let me tell you, guys, they're weighted down. They're so freaking heavy, you hit them, they're going to teeter down, teeter back, and God knows what they'll do to your undercarriage if you go over it.
How do they get emptied if they're so heavy?
They empty the bags. They pull the bags. Oh, yeah. Wait till you see. I've got pictures of the whole operation, and it's just not necessary. It's not necessary. Let's start educating the people to do the right thing, okay? Let's not make it keep making it easier for them to do the wrong thing. They can't, these cans can't be maintained in the parking lot between 8 o'clock at night and 4 in the morning. We've all seen that. I'm going to show it to you again. But why then put them on the beach? So the same abuse happens. Now it's happening halfway between the parking lot and the water. I mean, it was bad enough when it was happening on the parking lot. But why then allow the problem to creep closer to the water? That's been my contention all along on this. Not how the village and the town maintain those cans. In fact, I've got pictures of the village emptying the cans, but they don't pick up all the trash that's on the beach around the cans. Maybe they do little bits and pieces, but as you'll see in my pictures, it's a lot worse than what they can handle. And in fact, they empty the bags, they pick up a little around the bags, they drive away, and there's a shitload of mess still left behind. That's what I'm going to show you. And that's what I'm tired of seeing, year after year after year. Okay? You got the village guys, the town guys, they do great job. Great job. If that's what you want to hear, then that's what I'm telling you. The trash cans don't belong on the beach. That's my contention. They don't belong there. Leave them in the parking lot. Have people go, take their bag of garbage with them off the beach. It's a good education process. Take it off the beach, put it in the can at the beachhead. And when they get full and overflow, then it can all go into the parking lot, and some will come onto the beach as well. I don't like that, but let's get them off the beach for starters. Okay? Then we'll worry about then we'll let the town worry about how to, I'll address the town on how to maintain them in the parking lots, which I've been doing all along as well, to deaf ears mostly. But this stuff on the beach, it's gotta go. Gotta go. It's a mess. It's a frickin' mess. Disgusting. I'm tired of it. And there's people in the community that are tired of it too. Not just speaking for myself, I'm speaking for them. Okay, I'm done.
Adopt the beach?
Oh, shit. Well, at least I can say I don't have any issues with that. As long as we can get people to do it, it will be great. I don't even know if there's a promotion process in place. Are we promoting this? Not
yet, but I think we should. I think we can reach out to some community groups. I think CFAR was one proactive sign-up that could be a model.
Yes.
For that section of beach. I think there was some interest at one point with the Lazy Point Neighborhood Association doing the trustee beach out front of that community, and maybe some areas of Napeague. So I think there are some opportunities, maybe with the CACs possibly doing some networking. So,
is it on the website at all? Can we get it on the website? Because if we get it on the website, maybe
drive people there.
I can start spreading some word. We can get something going, or I don't know if we want to put something in the newspaper.
Can
We
also
are
be
also
instructed about the garbage cans.
at the beginning of July, so this summer's going to be over before we know it.
Yeah. No, and that can be also a way to introduce best practices like carry in, carry out. So there could be a lot of value
which really was really something I was willing to kind of meet in the middle about. Maybe put some signs out saying, look, we're going to start carrying it. But quite frankly, I'm tired of the signs too, because nobody's reading them and nobody's obeying them. And the ones that they do are all saying no this, no that. No swimming, no having fun, no smiling, no laughing, no being a human being. They're all no, 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 no. Where is welcome to the beach? Enjoy the day. Please bring your garbage to the garbage can when you're done. No, it's no fires, no liquor, no freaking SpongeBob umbrellas, whatever the heck it is. It's all no, no, no. These signs are ridiculous.
No dogs.
Community event.
Okay.
All right, I'm done.
Georgia,
Notification from the estate of Carl Tiedemann, located at 19 and 23 Chauncey Close, a resolution of their DEC violation. The matter is now closed. Anybody?
There's nothing to vote on.
No. Okay. Harbor Management, Horseshoe Crab Survey.
They're ongoing.
What a great
In
job.
full moon.
What a great
Last,
effort.
we got
by
the
so many
last week,
volunteers.
last week coming up, full
Yep,
moon.
This is it, full moon. We're beginning
tomorrow.
night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, right? And
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday,
we're going to
Friday.
cover the Northwest. Are you coming with us?
I'll try and do one night, but I am also
Fishing.
fishing quite a bit with
Okay.
some clients
All
and stuff.
right,
so.
good. Well, John and I have been doing the horseshoe crab for the new moon, and we saw that there were fewer spawning horseshoe crabs. We don't have tags. They didn't have enough tags or equipment for us, so we're just counting. But I know when I went out with you and Dell, Jim, we tagged 15 that night. You
And
were
we
doing
tagged,
your
Del
thing.
and I tagged, what did we tag, another 10?
Another 10, you have 25
Yeah,
total.
we had the 10 tags left over, but
What
we
was
didn't have
actually
the
kind of cool
drill.
is during that new moon cycle,
Yeah.
or excuse me.
You have
that
an
was full moon
abundance in the
cycle.
pig.
No, the last one was new moon.
New moon.
The last one, we didn't see any tags.
No, we did not.
Yeah. What was neat is the time when with the period that we were tagging, we actually found a significant number
Yes.
of our tagged individuals in the following nights. Delwyn and I went through this last new moon cycle. There was much fewer individuals breeding.
Exactly.
But you know what's kind of interesting? We came across, like, you get to know 'em. You come across and you recognize horseshoe crabs that
Well, the
you've
tags
seen
also have the
before.
reflector at
No,
night, so
these
they-
are not tagged.
No, these-
Oh,
We're
they're
getting-
untagged.
We're getting to know
Oh,
the
you can see
horseshoe
the
crabs
growth, the little
based on the bumps on their ass.
That's right.
And other things. And
Do they come right up to your boot? I've had a few come right up to my
They
boot.
hump you like a
Yeah, they just
like
glom
a
on.
dog that you got rid of.
Okay.
But
Lot of
no, we
single
saw
males out
ones that hadn't bred, that we were passing, that had no suitors. And then
Right.
towards the end of the moon cycle, we saw a couple of those. The last night we were out, we saw them that they were actually breeding. It was kind of cool.
Yeah. So we'll start tomorrow night again, I think at 9:30.
Yeah, we've got some extra help from South Fork Natural History Museum, the Northwest area, so we're going to try to expand the sampling near Mile Hill Road to do a little bit more beach up
And are we
there.
going to go out to Grace Estate area or toward the lighthouse this time?
Mile Hill Road. No,
but-
we're not going to the light.
Not that far? Okay, all right. Well, I like adventure, you know?
You'll need a 4-month.
But we'll continue to do our regular Northwest Creek, and then around Northwest Harbor?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we've been out there in the rain, in the sleet, in the hail, no. But it's been quite interesting, very interesting. And that is being done with, if anybody wants to go online, the horseshoecrab.org, is it New York horseshoecrab.org? And you can see the work that's been done and how many crabs have been tagged and so forth. And the tags have the little reflectors on them, so if you go out at night and you see them,
Great. If you could get me the link, that might be another
Yes. Okay,
link to the
great.
website, please.
and I am loaded with pictures.
Great.
I have to come and do
Yeah,
that.
They tag hundreds and hundreds of these west, maybe even thousands from some
Western
of these
Suffolk.
reports I've been reading
Yeah.
from these other groups.
Yeah.
So what I would think would be really super awesome is to get something tagged up there, somewhere up from another zone
Here.
to find it over
Right.
here. That would be like a...
I think
that would
next
like
year
a
it'll be,
big chicken dinner there.
next year I think they'll have more equipment because this is,
Well, I think we had to prove ourselves this year that we were really committed to this.
Yep.
So I'm hoping we get more tags next year.
yeah.
And they don't have a lot of data from the Peconic, so hopefully, next year we can expand this effort and maybe get some other people interested and
Well, we had
move outside of Nappy
high school,
Northwest.
Aubrey Peterson from the high school, he wanted to come along, but because of the kids being younger, you had to bring a guardian with you and so forth. But there's a lot of interest in this in our community.
Well,
And
we might
people
be able
who,
to get the Boy Scouts next year
excellent idea.
involved, because we do it. We go out on these little forays for the blue spotted salamanders and stuff, and I actually had fun. I took some good pictures.
You can make a new merit badge.
That's what it feels like when you're out there. You feel like a Boy Scout, like you're doing, like you're trying to get a
Your
badge
camera
for
looks like a
horseshoe
car is
crabs,
coming
you know?
down the road when you were
Yeah,
holding
well,
his, with the two lights outside. But,
Good stuff.
yeah.
Make a trusty horseshoe crab merit.
Merit badge, absolutely.
Yes.
I like that.
Nice.
Excellent idea.
very good. There is a nature study merit badge.
Yeah, but a horseshoe crab badge?
Yeah, well, National has a hard time, you know, it's hard to get one of these merit badges approved. You know, how's a friggin' kid in Wisconsin gonna get his friggin' horseshoe crab honorary merit badge? Is he gonna do it online?
Summer camp.
Figure out a way.
It's gotta be an
You
app
probably
or
have it made
someplace, right?
locally, though, Jim.
You could do
That
it with
idea's not so good anymore, John.
You could have it made locally.
Well, listen,
Somebody make a little badge.
There are
it's
rules.
not about the badges.
Hit
We're
the
not,
back.
Dell and I are not doing this clearly for the
Oh,
friggin' recognition, because,
Wait a second, and
I don't
here
know when he's gonna go postal on any given issue, you know, so.
Wait a second, here I've been knitting the badges for you too, and you're not
I
gonna
have to
take
walk a
them?
few paces behind you right now.
All right.
And you told me you had a great meeting with those guys. What happened?
I'm telling you, man, it all went south.
All right. Letter from Peter Mendelman to the trustees requesting a letter be written from the trustees to the town supervisor supporting a project to repair the jetties at 3 Mile Harbor.
I would like to make a motion that we write that letter. This is something that we've been kind of
I'll second that.
dabbling in for some months now. The Mendelmans brought it to our attention. The ownership of the jetties was the first issue that was asked. It was established clearly and definitively, and now maybe we could get some action on it, because those jetties are in tough shape.
Yeah, there's a lot of changes.
They're actually they're a liability at this point. Somebody's going to get hurt down
Yeah,
there.
the west
I
ones
thought
are scary.
I just recently saw money being set aside for this.
Well,
by
that's
the town. Yeah,
I think the wheels are getting started.
yeah.
All right, so making the motion, Jim?
Yes.
And I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll get it out. Napeag Lazy Point, application of Victor D'Amico, Institute of Art at 110 Napeag Meadow Road, reconstruct existing bulkhead and raise the height of the bulkhead by 18 inches.
We got an application on this a month or so ago. Apparently, there was some mistakes made. They made some modifications to the application. I actually have a meeting scheduled with the applicant's contractor and agent tomorrow to look at this. So this may be one that might be ready for our next meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, because we had been down there last week.
Yeah, but that was an unrelated.
In the meeting, and when I brought it up, they had no idea that that's what the application entailed, that they had only meant to have it for approximately 90 feet, 40-some yards of sand, and they weren't aware of the raising of the bulkhead, so they were going to
Who wasn't
resubmit.
aware of it?
Orly
and
or Chris.
Christopher Cohen.
They gave no
Yeah.
approval
They
for
gave
that.
no approval for what was applied for.
In fact, they were quite surprised, and they called Billy Mack right there in front of us.
Yeah, well, I'm meeting with Billy tomorrow.
Okay. I have to go back
Yeah,
to
they
harbor
changed it
management. Are we done with that?
Corner
or
now?
You're going to talk to
I'm
him
going to see him
Okay.
tomorrow. I don't think we need to talk about it anymore.
Okay. We have an email to the trustees requesting paddleboard racks.
Yeah, I owe a phone call to the member of the public who made that request. One of the things with paddleboards in terms of how they differ from kayaks is they're typically made out of fiberglass or epoxy, and you don't always want to leave them out in the sun, and that's why you don't see a lot of paddleboards scattered about the beach when you do plastic kayaks. So people prefer to keep them on their car and/or then put them, in their garage or their basement.
Yeah, I don't see
or
the
somewhere.
point of the paddleboard rack, because I thought you wanted to keep them on the top of your Range Rover.
Probably. It's part of the look.
Yeah, it's part of the look.
It's an accessory. But it's something, we may want to invite this member of the public in to at least share their perspective on it. It's not completely out of our wheelhouse, so to speak, but I don't know that there's going to be the same kind of demand like we see with kayaks that are
You'd probably
bigger,
have to
heavier, and more durable.
I have to
storage.
design a little shallower rack that's a little more sort of paddleboard friendly. Because
Almost like a locker.
I don't think,
Yeah.
Can you store a paddleboard on its side?
Yeah, that's what I would think.
You could possibly do it like a bike rack.
In a small area.
yeah.
possible. So, it might be interesting to hear from this person. I know he's experienced in the water sports industry, and
And as they've become more and
could
more
help
popular.
educate us a little bit.
Okay, but wait a second. If the water sports industry, we're not talking about somebody who's in the paddleboard rental business looking to set up shop.
No, I think it's more for personal
Okay.
use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These would be individual, like, we could put a limit on how many.
Yeah.
Like the kayaks. I think that
Very
since
similar to the
the
kayaks.
sport has become so popular that we should consider
Do they
seriously
take up any more space?
accommodating the.
But I think we may want to try and come up with a better design.
Yeah,
Like
they have
John
to be
just said, you could
Right.
fit
Right.
more of them in there, but they
Side-
also have to be,
Then you'd have
you
to
have
set them up like a dish rack. where
well,
they
you'd have to be able to secure these things, because you know what? How you, like the kayaks are pretty easy to secure. Paddleboards is going to be a little bit different
You
thing.
need an adjunct lock, like a Jaws clamp on the leash
Is
cleat.
that our responsibility?
No, it's theirs, but it's just a different,
Yeah,
We
There
could
are
drill holes in the
gadgets.
side of the rack so they could put the
use like a bike rack, a bike
drill a
lock.
hole in
thing
the
through.
paddleboard and and lash your chain through it.
Well, that's what you use the leash cleat for, and the little Jaws, there's a gadget for that.
There is?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, what do they call it?
I'd like to know if there's a way of judging the demand out there, other than like one guy saying, I want to do it.
Right.
No, it's in its earlier stages.
Well, I think you could do a pilot. You could do a rack, perhaps.
Yeah, a
you know,
dozen boards
pick-
or something.
Pick 2 spots, do a rack, offer it, and see what happens.
I have a feeling there would be demand, and it is a revenue
Yeah.
stream.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Worth considering.
Yeah, I think they'll come right, they'll all come to the table. The building, they'll come, no doubt.
I'd recommend requiring the lock mechanism. I think paddleboards tend to be a little more
Easier to
easier to steal, and little people want them more than they want your.
But we're not,
little plastic
we're
bag.
not liable for what gets stolen off those racks, are we?
Can we have them sign a hold harmless clause?
I think
Yeah.
that would be,
Yes.
can I tell you what? I think that should be part of the application.
Part of the application, sure.
Yeah.
You know, you could get some people taking it at night and going out and
Might not be
being
a
able.
bad idea to add
Harvesting
to the
like
kayak.
horseshoe crabs.
No, I mean, you might get some kids.
How
and
much
see
does
them
an
on the
average
beach. It's an
paddleboard
attractive
weigh?
nuisance and so
About.
forth.
Between 15 and 30 pounds.
So it's actually something that one person could carry away.
Oh, yeah.
So you'd really need to have,
Carry a
They're
kayak.
desirable.
unlike a canoe.
They're desirable, and they do walk away.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I'll follow up. I'll try and report back at the next meeting.
Okay.
You know, there was something, I think, about the roads committee, just to update everyone. I mean, now that we mentioned the art barge, I didn't want Jim to think, what the hell,
Oh,
were
no, I
they
know why
commenting
you
on the art
banned
barge?
it.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh,
How
okay.
Did you rectify that?
Yeah, we actually kind of
Yeah,
did.
we
Susan.
kind of came to agreement right now, and we're going to meet back in
Is the
another
chain
3 or
down?
4 weeks. The chain is down, and
Going to remain down, they're going to
one,
remove
the
a sign,
sign
perhaps.
is
that
down,
we-
Private
road
property.
temporarily closed, and they agreed to remove the other sign too, correct? Yeah.
No trespassing.
They do want to meet with us one more time after they
Private road.
speak with their council. Fair enough. We had our council, they
'Cause I think
didn't.
I think that's important.
Sure.
We had several complaints this year, and not for nothing. I get the private easement thing, but your private easement takes you to state land. It's public land.
Which makes it no longer private, right.
Exactly.
What's that?
Is the easement with the state?
Yeah, the easement's
so-
with the state.
But, and that they weren't denying, but they, you know, it was a matter of, well, is it actually an easement, or is this a trail that is only marked on one map, and
Because
it's...
we
Yeah.
may end up finding ourselves having to involve the state parks department to back us up on this, define their.
Well, there was also
conditions of their easement.
discussion about making an access up by that road that goes by the tower,
Right.
and make that the access.
Yeah, listen, we don't need, let's carve another road through the.
Well, I mean, not
through the
us.
marsh.
They were going to discuss that with the state. They had
Yeah,
already
yeah, okay.
planned on doing
Okay,
that.
why don't you, I think we should, for the amount of traffic that this attracts and generates, honestly, I don't think it would ever warrant doing what you're
Do
describing
a lot of
there.
people use it?
Yeah, during duck season, sure.
Or what about
Well, people use it for clamming.
Now, the windsurfing thing tends to happen on the other side, but it doesn't matter. You know, that is, it's
clammers and hunters.
It's public lands, and the public should have access to it.
It's really the only way you can get into the south end
Could
of
put
the
some
harbor.
garbage cans down there on those beach if you could wave them up. I didn't want to get you going again.
No, last time we did, I'm sorry, Francis, we did have a discussion about Merchants Path.
Yeah, that's where I was
The
going.
last meeting, I'm
Good.
sorry.
No, it's fine. It's great.
And, you know, we did identify that that road bed is really narrow, there are encroachments, and
Well, we have a 50-foot wide right-of-way.
so, yeah, we should have ample room to, you know, ask some of the adjacent property owners to reel back some of their improvements that right now are probably not appropriately placed. And then I believe Mr. Lynch has offered to get in there and widen the roadbed a little bit so that
He actually
emergency
called
vehicles
today and-
can get through.
Would it be helpful to get Steve Lynch involved in this request with us?
Well, he's aware of it, and I think it came somewhat through him originally.
It was a fire
And then we
truck,
need
right?
to
Couldn't
get
get through?
with the homeowners that are the adjacent property owners, because they've put up these fences. And I think, Susan, you were going to get some information. to
Yeah, I
Chris.
gave the information to Chris. I did, through the planning board, there's a couple properties, 2 or 3 properties there that actually have a scenic easement, and which clearly states in the easement that they're not to erect any kind of structures, fences, no plantings. It has to be kept in its natural state. So clearly, they've even violated their conditions of the scenic easement.
Yeah, the original concern was there was a fire back there, and the trucks had trouble passing through. And the main concern is a brush fire, they have no way to turn around or back up. They could just get trapped in there. And
Well,
And they're
not to
held
mention,
accountable if the house
when you have a
burns.
fire and the incident report records that access to a particular property was problematic, your insurance company, you hear from your insurance company about that. You have to maintain your homeowner's insurance, you absolutely are mandated to provide given dimensional access for emergency vehicles.
My understanding is that if they cannot get through, then the fire department cannot be held liable.
Well, they're
For-
typically not held liable anyway, but it becomes, the insurance company will have a difficult time accepting a claim, because we've had it, where, you know, somebody thinks it's quaint and cool to have gray gardens, you know, to have the growth all grown over the top of the thing. Well, that's fine with, you know, when you're driving your Mini down the driveway. But when your house catches on fire, or when you need an ambulance, you don't have a Mini coming down your driveway.
Yeah, there's no way 2 emergency vehicles can pass each other.
Well, you know, that,
A lot of these
sometimes
homeowners think of
that's, you're not, just never going to get that, but it's got to be passable.
They asked, the fire department asked for 40 feet. Stephen said we had 50, so.
Shouldn't be a problem.
Have we passed any of the encroachments along with code enforcement?
Well, I asked Chris to take a look at it, and I gave him all that paperwork. So-
Yeah, I have the paperwork, and I'll review it and follow up with whatever we need to do. What do you guys
Yeah, we
want
have
to do?
two opportunities. One is code enforcement, and one is a direct letter from the trustees. And we were pretty effective with that approach over on Midland Highway, and we saw the retraction of some of the deer fencing there and the clearing of access to the trustee road. So it seemed like the dual approach was effective.
So I'll craft some letters to the individual homeowners. If the trustees will take on going to code enforcement, we'll take on both sides and give it a shot.
Okay.
Okay.
How many pieces of property are we talking about?
There was 3, I have to take a walk back up there because.
About 3.
So, yeah, there was 3, possibly 4.
One has a very lengthy section of fence, and one has a shorter, more decorative fence on the other side of the street, so it just creates this pinch point as the road, you know, goes from blacktop to the unimproved area where the trustees have retained the ownership of the road.
All right, move on to administrative payment of the bills. The East Hampton Star for public notices, $59.83. East Hampton Marina, pump out boat gas and repairs, $769.65. Staples, $519.68 for printer, ink, and supplies.
Motion to pay the bills?
I make a motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is that printer ink for the big printer?
Yeah. Well, we have two printers. There's Lori's little one and then the big one.
That's quite.
It's about $400 every month or two for the color printer. That's, the big printer we change like once a year, but that was included in this.
The color one's laser printer, right?
Yeah.
All right, minutes, June 11th.
I read them and added one thing about the horseshoe crab paragraph on what has been going on, and that was it. Everything else looked to be good, so I sent it back after editing it.
Yeah, I made a small modification to the little section too. Everything else looked fine to me.
And I did Susan Warple's edits also. You should all have the corrected minutes in yours with your changes, so if there's anything else, I corrected them.
Yeah, I'd make a motion to approve the minutes with the submitted corrections.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Financial reports for the month ended May 31st.
I have personally not had a chance to really look them over, so unless someone else has, I would ask that we table these so they can be properly reviewed.
Yeah, I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye. Brian usually likes to run through them.
Brian's pretty good at, giving them a chance to weigh in.
Okay, and we have the renewal of another certificate of deposit under the numbers 7248.
Make a motion to roll that over.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, report of the clerk. I have two things. I just want to report that the Montauk pump-out boat, the tank was contaminated about a week and a half ago. Somebody out there dumped oil into the tank.
Oh, gosh.
So it took the boat offline for, I think, 2 or 3 days while the tank was removed and flushed out and cleaned from the inside
Is that
out.
an accident?
No,
Or-
no accident.
Oh.
They may have thought they were doing the right thing, we don't know, but
Was this
somebody
dumped in
boarded the boat.
In the sludge tank? You know, in the
Yeah.
effluent tank?
Yes. Somebody boarded the boat and poured it in the tank.
When nobody was
How
there.
did
So
we
they were
pick
trying
it
to,
up?
they were trying to just do a disposal.
Right,
Off
right. Right.
schedule.
Now, apparently, it's usually locked, or it was locked. This happened once before, years ago. They put a lock on it, and maybe someone got a little complacent with that. So,
Okay.
So,
They won't be complacent for the rest of the season.
and the other thing, back to Stephen Lynch, I got a call from him today. He has a budget line of $93,000 for launching ramp repairs. So he suggested that we put together a committee to do an assessment of the launching ramps, see what needs attention, and then we can submit to have that done. And we come out of that budget line.
that might be a good harbor management committee process. So if it's okay, I'd like to suggest that the harbor management committee take a look at that.
This is only going to be in harbors. We're not going to look out on like Northwest or anything
Well,
like that.
there is that one out in Northwest that was removed a couple of years ago. If there's a way that it can be put back. I'm sorry? Yes.
Alewife Brook?
Yes. I mean, it may not.
Some form
Of some form.
aggregate or something, you know.
Yeah, that's a useless place to launch now, and it didn't used to be. And,
Right.
I
And
mean,
people tend to use it for jet skis
Yeah.
more than
Well,
anything.
we'll take a look at it.
Is this the
So we'll
launch
include-
by the
We'll
Grace's
include
Bay?
that
Yeah.
property
Yes.
as well. Trustee Beach.
Because most of the other launching ramps are not that bad, that's, I mean, offhand.
Is that a good beach for us to go look at horseshoe crabs?
Well, that's where Aubrey did. We had the people we could.
Okay. All right, correspondence, DEC report on harmful algal blooms. We get them every week. Everybody gets copied of this, don't they?
Yeah.
Okay. Peconic Estuary Program, upcoming events. Are we posting these on our site yet, or links to these?
Not all of them, but we should be able to get that going.
Okay.
I'd like to get with Arlene, and maybe we'll do a freshen up, and Susan has some
I
pictures.
was going to say, let's
Schedule
find
a
a day
meeting.
that we can
Yeah,
all get
let's do
together.
that. Get some fresh content up on the site. Thank you, Francis.
And let's see, a letter from the Association of Marine Industries to the Suffolk County Department of Economic Development and Planning regarding the proposed 10-acre shellfish aquaculture leases on Peconic and Gardeners Bay. I have not reviewed that letter.
Did we all get copies of that?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, this is a challenging issue for, navigational users of these waterways, because historically, oyster growing took place on the bottomlands, and you had some buoys or some stakes that delineated these areas, and it's come to, I guess, everyone's attention that keeping these containers up on the surface reduces predation, it's easier to clean them, so on and so forth. So now, we could potentially see all this gear
Well, is anybody
Floating
talking
on
about
the,
doing mussels too, or just,
floating,
or is
you know,
it just?
No, this is just oysters
Just
now.
oysters, right.
So I think there are some, basic navigational concerns. I know Devon Yacht Club has expressed some concerns of their
Is
traditional
that what's off,
uses.
is that what's off in Gardeners Bay right now?
Yeah, exactly. I think
Those
there's,
are- those are oysters?
there's three sites.
Napeague, yeah.
There's three sites, I think, that are built out, so to speak.
This is the subject of litigation between Devon Yacht
Devon
Club
Yacht
and
Club.
the county right now. So I think, I think there's going to have to be a resolution of that particular suit before
Too much
things
more
move forward.
develops.
That's my understanding.
But I mean, I could see if you were running a boat through there in the evening or at night.
Well, you just have to come up, like, they have these things, like in Ireland, they have them all over the place. But clearly, they must have some sort of regulation, conformity to where, one, where they get located, and second to that, how they're marked in a way that they don't become hazards to navigation.
I mean, if you could sink them and raise them when you needed to do maintenance, that would
Yeah, well, they do them over there, they're
improvement
on
from
the
a
surface all
navigational
the
safety
time.
perspective. I don't know if it's a feasible, logistically approach.
My,
How many of them are there in total?
There's a lot. The
30?
How
master
many
map
what?
is
Of
big.
the oyster containers, how many of them are there out there? 30?
depends on whose they are and what
Well,
lease
if you
you're
look at the
talking
master
about.
map for the Peconic Bay area and Gardeners Bay area, there's many, many 10-acre lots. It's quite comprehensive. And these are a lot of areas that are traditionally used for sailing, races, for recreational fishing,
And in front of
commercial
Devon Yacht
fishing.
Club, how many approximately?
There's a couple that got in their way.
Oh,
Well, there's quite a few lease areas
quite a
there.
few. And they range
Any more than
from,
three.
Yes.
I don't know the exact.
they range along Promised Land and out towards Hicks Island. in a
I think
lot.
they've all traditionally been used for oyster farming in the past, like 100 years ago.
Well, as a long story to this, this was a law that was passed in 1894 to allow Suffolk County to lease out bottomland for the cultivation of oysters because New York State owns the bottomland. And it was a thriving industry through the 30s. I think it toned down during the war, and then gradually a lot of they was started out as small lots, and a lot of the lots merged into larger lots. And eventually, by the 50s and 60s, it was really all the lots were kind of controlled by a couple of large corporations. And then when the brown tide came along, it pretty much eliminated the oyster populations out there. companies went out of business, a group of people bought, or that somehow they got control of the leases from the corporations, said they were going to do aquaculture, but then really started just harvesting wild stock. That created a big controversy. That led to the aquaculture lease program, which was developed in its current form. And that was a program that was developed over 5 years, between 2004 and 2009, something like that. And it was, you know, they had there were extensive hearings about it on both forks, and maps were developed, and, you know, certain groups and individuals never really participated in the process, knew or heard about the process, I guess, and now they're seeing these things out there and raising these concerns. So, like I said, it really, my understanding is that the whole issue has kind of been just come to a halt because of the lawsuit. So, you know, that lawsuit's going to have to work its way through and get some kind of a resolution before, you know, anything can move forward with modification to the program. I may be wrong about that, but that's kind of, I know there's a lawsuit.
This is a milestone case that's going on right now.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it plays out.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
And we have
History.
one more piece of correspondence. Offshore wind development fisheries stakeholder meetings, comment period meetings for the New York Bight call areas. On May 22nd, 2018, the Federal Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, BOEM, extended the public comment period for offshore wind energy development within the New York Bight region to July 30th, 2018. BOEM is requesting comments on potential lease areas for offshore wind energy development identified on the map below as BOEM New York Bight call areas. In collaboration with the State of New York, Department of Environmental Conservation and New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, BOEM is convening 2 public comment sessions to help ensure that BOEM is aware of the questions or concerns of New York's fishing community and other stakeholders. BOEM will present information regarding the New York Bight call for information and area identification, process and characterization of the New York Bight fisheries. These sessions will occur on July 11th from 4 to 8 p.m. at the Montauk Community Playhouse, the ADC room at 240 Edgemere Street in Montauk. And then again on July 12th, 2018, from 4 to 8 at the Shinnecock Commercial Fishing Dock Office, 333 Beach Road, also known as Dune Road, Hampton Bays, located at the Shinnecock Commercial Fishing Dock in Hampton Bays side of the Shinnecock Inlet. If you're unable to attend a meeting, or if you prefer to submit written comments to BOEM electronically, comments will be submitted, may be submitted by July 30th, 2018. To submit comments online or get information on how to mail in comments, please visit www.regulations.gov and in the search bar enter BOEM-218-0004. Okay, so and that's all I have. Anybody have anything else?
I'd like to make a motion to close.
I would just like to add one thing. Tomorrow is primary voting day. Anybody's inclined to vote in the primary? Polls are open early in the morning.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.